Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. So, on that note, it's my turn to talk about
tough week for segues, man.
Yes,
really
well,
it's he's a little off his game.
Okay, so I'm not wearing it right now because it's on my bathroom sink, but I'm wearing the Halo band that Amazon put out, and I did it to use it as a sleep tracker, and it's been very interesting, but last night it didn't even register. I had so little sleep, it just didn't even register. And it shames you if you don't have enough sleep. Ooh, poor. That last night was poor. but anyways,
is that effective? Is that going to help you sleep better the next night?
No, it is actually interesting to see. It's a pretty good product. It's and they're expanding it. Which brings me to what I'm going to start talking about. It is a pretty good product. They've got a sort of a 2.0 version with a Fitbit-like screen that they announced at their hardware event yesterday. And they see that was a sort of stealth segue that I just did. So Amazon had this big hardware event where they announced a wide range of things. There's a couple of interesting services, kind of quasi services, but mostly it was hardware, Echo devices, new Halo thing, bigger, many variations on existing devices. But what was striking to me was the Astro robot. Astro was, of course, the Jetsons' dog's name, for those that remember the Jetsons. And it's described as an Alexa on wheels, or it's like a Roomba with a screen or something. It's like a robot vacuum. It'll follow you around. You can interact with it. You can do video calls. I guess you can do anything you can sort of do on one of their screens with voice control. You can do on this. And they make it this very playful, cute thing in their promotional material. But immediately people started saying, no, this is some insidious, kind of surveillance device that's going to come into your house. And it costs $1,000 for the early adopters, and it's going to be $1,500 for those people who wait.
And apparently when it walks off a staircase and breaks, there's no way to ship it back to Amazon, from what I could read.
Is that a real thing?
I read that. I read that they tend to step off steps, and when they break, there's no repair mechanism at this moment.
All right. Well, that sounds like a great product.
but just a note on this. I was thinking a lot about why Apple Voice and voice interaction works for me. And it's because I have a phone with me all the time, but then when I get in my car, I have a button I can push. And when I'm not in my car, I'm walking down the street, I have my watch, or I'm on my bike, or I'm at home and I have a home pad. So that voice is ubiquitous for me, so that I can learn to interact with it and it can learn me. And the problem with having just an in-home product like Facebook wants to do or Amazon's trying to do is that it isn't ubiquitous, and you can't develop the necessary habits to use voice in a broad range of contexts.
But I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, because if you've got Google products and you've got Amazon products and you've got Apple, which I do here,
they work.
One of them will train you to. They work more or less the same, right? You sort of get trained to use Siri or trained to use Alexa or the Google Assistant, and you could transfer that into these other devices. Now you're in a complete, like, hermetically sealed Apple world there.
That's right. All Apple all the time.
Well, and this is what Amazon was talking about yesterday, was sort of ambient computing, which is their way of trying to move beyond the smartphone. Facebook has got glasses that they're trying, the metaverse, whatever.
Right, they're trying to interact with car. They have car dashes they're working with.
Right. So if you've got a smartphone, then that's your sort of anchor asset. I mean, Google's in a little bit of a different position, but if you don't have a smartphone, then you're trying to circumvent or move beyond, transcend the smartphone and say, this is the future. But what was really striking to me about the Astro coverage was how kind of hostile it was right out of the gate. It wasn't like in the old days, as we were discussing before this call, in the old days, you would have got these people sort of saying, yeah, this is really cool, or this works, it doesn't work well, it costs this much, here's the market for it, here's the competition. But now you get these pieces that will talk about it being essentially an evil device, coming to do something really dangerous and damaging to you. And that is fundamentally different, and it's been sort of building for a long time. But the attitude now to these companies is one of suspicion and even hostility in many instances, and that's kind of across the board. I think Apple gets.
I think Apple's an exception. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, it gets it a little bit less. I mean,
speaking of Apple devices listening in, Mike.
Well, yeah, the App Store discussion. Apple has been charged with hypocrisy, both around privacy and the App Store, and is seen as a self-interested actor trying to protect its own monopolies or advance its own revenue goals by making it harder for other people to do app download ads in other places. Apple gets more revenue, that kind of thing, with iOS 14.5. But what's also striking to me beyond the hostility of the coverage is just the general mood now that we're all in, where we are surrounded by these devices. Everybody we know uses them, these websites. We feel compelled to use them. I mean, we work in this industry, but everybody feels compelled to participate, and there's more and more and more ambivalence or dissonance around it, but nobody feels like they can stop using these tools. I mean, Facebook is the perfect example. I've talked to 1 million people. Everybody's ambivalent about Facebook, but no one quits. And Facebook. The
question for Facebook, though, is how many are buying into their hardware world?
Not that many, right? That's where the distrust is showing up, because their portal device, as far as I can tell, is kind of a failure. I mean, they just released a new version of it, but it has really not sold relative to the others, their smart screen. And I think the glasses, it's interesting. The Facebook brand does not appear anywhere on the physical glasses. It's on the box, apparently.
Ray-Ban, right?
Right. And that's very self-conscious, because I think if it was like Facebook on the side or something, it would be even more rejected than it may be. That's the first thing out of the reviewers' mouths. These glasses are really pretty cool. They're sort of normal, but I don't know how I feel about them being an extension of Facebook's apparatus. So we are trapped in a certain way in these ecosystems where we are feeling more and more ambivalent about using them, and like we have less and less power to do anything about it.
And people draw the line on the Astra, the glasses, and they say there is no way I'm going to give that. Whether the company is evil or not, the question becomes, do I really need to give up more data? And is there enough of a gain to do it? And I think a lot of people are making that assessment, even outside of the evil conspiracy model.
Well, I don't want to go that far and say it's an evil conspiracy. I think there's a logic operating.
It's easy to say that, though, and it gets said frequently.
Right. I mean, but I think that people would have been seduced by the devices. I mean, the parade of new hardware is always kind of, it's like, oh, I want the iPhone 13 and I want the Pixel 6 and I want this new, Surface computer or whatever. But
so speaking of fanboy, I did buy an iPhone 13 Pro, and I have to say the macro photography is incredible.
You didn't get the Pro Max?
I did
there
not
a Pro
get
Max?
There is a Pro Max. My hands are not big enough for the Pro Max.
So the difference between the Pro and the Pro Max is just the size? Is that right?
Yes, at this point.
We're digressing now into a hardware discussion.
Well,
but anyway,
we're trying to end on a happy note, Greg. So
I'm just fessing up that I am I'm fessing up to my.
Well, I'm contemplating the iPhone 13, but this is what I'm saying. It's like these devices that used to seduce and excite us now are seen as instruments of some surveillance apparatus that's ultimately coming for our data and will exclude us from health insurance, that kind of thing. Anyway, so next week Mike is going to be on speaking of health insurance, he's going to be on a bike trip, and so we will have a special guest, hopefully, who we will announce at the time. And Mike, I hope you have a great time on your trip. We'll see you back in 2 weeks.
For sure.
Right, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Yep.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.